By the way, my body is 81 years old and 8 months. I'll be 80. Body will be 82 in March. And because of Dianetics and the fact that people lived a long time in my family, I have one sister 91, another 88. I had a brother that lived to be 83, but he smoked himself to death. And another brother who had some big problems from childhood diseases like pneumonia, scarlet fever, and diphtheria, but he still made it into the United States Air Force, and he didn't live as long as he might have, but anyway, the fact that I'm still relatively healthy, a lot of it may be due to I was going to say genetics, but a lot of it might have to do with a lot of good Dianetics that I got early on, which helped get rid of some of the things like what Tatiana handled emotionally that can make a body sick. But more on that later. I think I wanted to talk about something today. I just don't remember what it was, except that the idea of Tatiana coming over, she often mentions, and I do too, why don't we play chess? Chess is a game. Some of the people who may be listening to this talk know about chess, and they know too that in Russia, people practically cut their teeth on chess pieces. It's a game in which a famous chess player is a national hero, a person like a national treasure, and there have been quite a few Russian players of that status, grandmasters that were unbelievably capable in playing a game that has an almost infinite possibilities of strategies and positions and attack and defense. So Tatiana, when we play chess, usually polishes me off like boom, 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 boom. I think I've got a pretty good grasp of the game, but it's like having a hurricane or a tornado come onto the chessboard. So today, after we finish what we're doing right now, we are going to play some chess, and I mention it because Hubbard went out of his way in the lecture series that he gave in 1952 to talk about what is a game. Everybody thinks they know what a game is, and they probably do have a pretty good idea. It has something to do with playing, right? And it usually has a definition, like chess is a game with blah, 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 and this is how it's played, blah, blah, blah. And these are the rules, and these are the penalties. And the chessboard is the playing field. And the two people are the real players. And they have pawns, and they have knights, and they have bishops. It's just like a country in a way. And they have rooks, which are like very powerful pieces. You can castle with them. And then they have a king and a queen. And they all have different levels of power, just like they do in the real world. They can all have different ways of moving on the board, of capturing in different ways. It's an immense game, quite ancient from what I've heard. Anyway, Tatiana is very good in relation to me, and I used to be a fairly medium to low player in the real world of chess. I could beat a lot of people in the family, but when it came to good chess players. But the thing about any game that you have to know is that when Tatiana and I are playing, I'm trying to make her lose. She's trying to make me lose. I'm trying to make her look stupid. She's trying to make me look stupid. Oh, could I take that move back? No. You move in chess, it stays. But it was such a stupid move. Too bad. I set you up to make it. So it isn't like she really wants me to be stupid, but if you're playing a real game, you want to make the other fellow fail. If you're playing for real. Now, if I'm playing chess with one of my grandchildren, I want that child to beat me. I want to push him to his limits, but in the end of the game, I want him to either checkmate me or get a draw, or some way not come away from it feeling Grandpa Phil beat me. That's called pandeterminism, in which instead of me winning, my win is to have the grandchild win. When I'm playing Tatiana, my win is for her to lose. Her win is for me to lose. So in real games, people go to any length they can think of, short of murder. Well, that's war. That's the game called War, filled with murder. Any length are acceptable within the rules of the game to make the other fella fail, to make him feel incompetent, to make him regret what he's causing. And those are the sorts of things that make people crazy. To lose, to feel that you failed, to feel that you were incompetent, to lose your certainty of, I thought I could play a lot better. I thought I was a good player. I realize I'm not. There's something wrong with me. All the conclusions that people and groups and countries and universes, conclusions that they draw when they fail or lose. So real games, if you pursue them with all your worth, like you become a professional hockey player or a professional chess player, or even a dedicated amateur, you're running the risk of losing, and also you're running the risk of trying to make your fellow players, your fellow human beings, people that you could love and understand and associate with, you're working your hardest to make them lose. You got to understand that, and that's why Hubbard pointed out that some games are fun. They're a lot of fun, but they all produce aberration or mental illness to one degree or another. And you can see in people that have played to make others lose and eventually lose themselves, they have suffered mentally, emotionally, and otherwise, just as they have caused others to feel that way too. Normally I don't go out of my way to make the people around me feel like they're failures, incompetent, stupid, blah, 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 blah. If I did that, you'd say, you know, Phil is a kind of a suppressive person. Everybody around him is like losing and failing and getting sick and feels incompetent and afraid to reach and blah, blah, blah. But that's what you're doing when you play a game if you're playing for real. So don't tell me that games are just la-di-da-di-do in which everybody wins. Once you say everybody wins, it's not a game. That's playing for fun only. And we're now talking about one of the highest levels that Hubbard ever could mention, and he points it out. It's something called the spirit of play. Now, if you can remember being a child, a healthy child, hopefully, a child who wasn't born into starvation, neglect, and every other terrible thing that some children are born into, but even they, perhaps. But if you can remember being a child, you know what the spirit of play is. It means every morning when you get up, first thing you want to do is run and play. Don't want to walk. You want to run and yell and scream and play and animate things, find your friends. Everybody's saying, stop, cool it, you got to eat this, sit there, shut up, eat, get ready to go. But all you want to do is play. And if you can remember what that felt like, how your body felt, and how you didn't care about anything, you weren't worried about the rent, the taxes, your car, your marriage, the government, the politics, where's the food coming from, where's the shelter coming. You didn't have anything on your mind except to play. Now, that spirit, if you can rehabilitate it in yourself or just remember it, is like, if there is such a thing as high, that's about as high as you can get in this universe, is to actually create again, or to experience, or to feel that you really are living at the spirit of play. It's way above, according to Hubbard, and I agree with him, it's way above just about anything. It's way above great spirituals this and great awarenesses of that and everything. It's what free beings before they become entrapped, beings before they come implanted, beings before they give up on the idea of being free, beings that really are totally free, beings that are immortal. They can't be harmed, they can't be destroyed. Nothing can really be done to them unless they say, "That's been done to me." Unless they say that, it doesn't work. You can shoot them with lightning bolts and send them through hellfire and damnation. Nothing happens unless they agree. One way to get them to agree is to get them to inhabit a mortal body that can experience pain, suffering, and death. That's how you can get a free being to agree to anything, by torture. By doing things to the body, saying, if you don't do that, I'm going to spank you until you cry, and I'll lock you in a closet too. So that's how the body, the human body, which is a wonderful thing, but it's built to feel. Everything is feeling. It's a beautiful day, sun. It's a great sensation producer, and it attracts what we'll call free beings or free spirits or something that isn't mortal. It's the part of you that is not anything, but is capable of being everything. It's the part of you that can create, postulate, perceive, or not. It's the part of you that can choose anything or not, or choose not to. It's that. It's not a solid or substantial thing. It's in the area of thought. And thought has no substance to it. Thought is like, if you want a definition of immortal, thought itself. Not just thinking, that's something else, but thought, like an idea. An idea can change the whole course of the universe or the world, and yet it has no substance. That's why things like capitalism, communism, Buddhism, Christianity, these are all ideas. Ideas that have influenced the whole planet. Fascism, Hitler, a corporal, couldn't get above corporal in World War I. He was just an ordinary guy, painted postcards and a few things, but he had a big mouth and a lot of ideas. Ideas that he was able to sell. And before you know it, once again, fascism, the Roman legions are on the march again. We're going to conquer the world. Ta-dum, ta-dum. Mussolini, ta-dum. Same thing. Roman legions. We're out to do it again. What's motivating all this? Thought. An idea. That's all. So there's a part of what I'll call you, or you, not this, but whatever you really is, that can think. It does it every day. It says, well, I postulate I'm going to get to the office today through the rush hour. A lot of people are going to die today, but not me. Huh? Okay, you did it. By thinking a thought. So one of the big things about Scientology and Dianetics was to free up that which can create thought. It can also uncreate thought. That's why it's so important not to get screwed up with opinions and dogma and fixed ideas and this is the truth. No such thing. And Hubbard would agree with you in 1952 completely. If he came to you in 1952 and said, we're going to do this to you and you're going to always be that way from now on, you'd have kicked him in his big fat ass. It wasn't that fat then, but it was getting there. Excuse me for saying fat, that's unpleasant. I don't mean, I take that back. You would have just simply said, get stuffed, you need some help yourself. But no one, after a while, has the courage, the strength, or the intelligence to say to the rising guru, You need help. You're talking the opposite of the idea of freedom to think freely, to counter, utter, write on what anyone else thinks, does, or feels. And those are the original guarantees. They're all written in the creed of the Church of Scientology. Hubbard wrote that creed, and it's a beautiful thing because it's about all of the inalienable freedoms that you should have. Not necessarily that they're granted by the Church of Scientology. They're yours. They're inalienable. No one can either give them or take them away. They are what you are, which is free. Freedom of thought. Now, thought, again, is an immortal because it has no substance. An idea, a very powerful idea, still has nothing you can get a hold of and do that with it. It can motivate people to kill 100 million people, but the thought itself is nothing. And that is essential to an understanding when we start looking at the parts of what a human being consists of. That's the beginning, number one part. There may be something beyond it even, but that's the one that Scientology is all about. It's rediscovery of your everything. It's everything that you aren't. You can have a negative definition because you aren't anything. You're like an idea. There's something you can't get a hold of. But by its own considerations, you can do anything to it. You can turn it into a rock, the chair, anything. But it has to be by its own. Now, that level of understanding and responsibility does not come easily because we've been conditioned, implanted, educated, and raised not to believe that about ourselves, because we immediately, when we feel that way, become a danger to the fixed ideas of society and civilization. If you start feeling like nobody can do anything to me, nobody can harm me, they can tear my body to shreds, they can never get to me. If you start feeling that way, you are, in the eyes of a fixed society in which the body is everything, a danger. And the few people that have that idea have done both awful and wonderful things. Hitler, Genghis Khan, Buddha, Bada, positive, negative, but when somebody like that gets loose, you got to watch out because they can change the whole world for better or for worse. Because that's their idea of playing. That's their spirit of play at that level of freedom. They're just having fun. Human beings don't think so. No, if I'm locked in a cage with electrodes attached to my genitals and water being poured down my nose and the other things done to me, it's hard to feel like a free being. I've become pretty attached to being a body, a human being body, and I resent it when people hurt the body. It feels like they're hurting me because I've gone from being an individual to being Philip Spickler, human being. And human beings are vulnerable. They die, they get sick, they have a short lifespan, they love, they hate, they're heir to everything. So that's another story. We've just covered what might be called the top, which is thought. And thought, remember, ideas. You cannot, if you can ever get one that you can actually hold like that, I want to see it. It's impossible. You can write it on a piece of paper, though. But the thing itself, an idea, is in terms of life, nothing. And yet it's that which motivates everything. You think, well, we want to build a university over here, said Leland Stanford. I'm pointing this way because just across the street is the beginning of Stanford University. We live right on its border here, so to speak. And Leland Stanford said, my son died. He died of something that he picked up when he was in Italy. I think it was typhoid fever. Nowadays, typhoid fever, no problem. But when Leland Stanford, who owned a lot of California and was a senator and a multi-millionaire, he couldn't do anything to save the life of his only son, Leland Stanford Jr. So after his kid died, he said, I'm going to start a university and name it after him. It'll be called Leland Stanford University. Leland Stanford Jr. University. Now the university over the years dropped all of that and just says Stanford University because they don't want to call it LSU Junior University. There is an LSU in Louisiana, I think. But anyway, he had an idea. Let's build a Harvard of the West, a school that will eventually, like everything that Leland Stanford touched, get big, wealthy, powerful, and make the West look as big as the East. Because Harvard was already 150 or 200 years old when Leland said, let's start a university. Now he's got a university that somewhat can compete with Harvard in terms of size, prestige, growth, billions. Not really, but it's up there. And it all started just with an idea. Me too. I started with an idea my parents had, except it was an accident. Really. They were like, we do not need a fifth child. But we do want to have, do that thing that results in children. And since we don't know anything about birth control, having both been born before the 20th century, birth control? That was a big question for them. So here I am, body, talking, hopefully saying things that will be helpful and that anyone that listens will judge anything I have to say against their own understandings, their own truth, their own opinions, and accept nothing unless for you it seems to be relevant. Thank you so far, and at this point we're going to take a break.